Father, forgive me, for it has been 3 months since I have last uploaded a gaming video. 3 months since I have last addressed the audience as gamers. I fear my constituents will not offer me the same forgiveness you will. Who said I forgive you? You're a priest. You need to make this right in the hearts and eyes of gamers. Your penance is a video essay talking about the future of Nintendo. Father, please, but I don't know where to begin. I'm no psychic. Did you say sidekick? What? No, I said like the fully fleshed out unique sidekicks from Paper Mario, the Thousand Year Door that defined a generation of compelling characters and storylines in Nintendo's catalog that we have not seen the likes of since, and badge system that procured a depth of gameplay never before seen in a Mario game, and the distinct charms specific to certain characters that haven't really tried to replicate since. Wait a minute. Mario. That's it! The future of Nintendo depends on the Thousand Year Door Remake releasing this year, 2024! Yes. Gamers, during the Nintendo Direct of September 2023, something miraculous happened. The Direct was by all accounts supposed to flop, with all of Nintendo's planned major releases already out of the way for the year. I and many others were expecting a bit of a drag. Well, those of us who hadn't disillusioned themselves into believing that the Switch 2 was going to be announced. Instead, we were presented with a truly all-star cast of familiar titles getting a new chance at life. Super Mario RPG, the first Peach game in 18 years, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, and finally, the crowning jewel atop the latent crown on sweet, sweet Takahashi's head, Paper Mario, the Thousand Year Door. Now you may be thinking, Kay, the Switch is dying. She's on her last legs. You're just waiting till the right moment to take her out back to finish the job. Who cares what's announced so late into her life cycle? I think there's a conscious decision being made to bring back as many legacy titles to modern platforms as possible, especially since Nintendo is so notorious for making their retro games virtually inaccessible. Just look at the online services being cut from Wii U and 3DS this year. I could go on and on about the mess that Nintendo has made for itself with the retro video game market, but that's not necessarily what today's about. I'm not mad. The impact of the Switch isn't lost on anybody, and I think everyone in the industry and casual gamers alike are all anxiously awaiting to see what's next. No doubt, another console that will sell incredibly well as long as it offers more storage, better processing power, and backwards compatibility, as it has with both home consoles and handheld consoles alike in the past. But what about Nintendo's soul? Somewhere along the way, Nintendo chose to follow the trend of flattening everything. That is to say, by modernizing a lot of their assets like menus and UIs, they were simplified. And while minimalism isn't a bad thing in and of itself, it's just never been Nintendo's gimmick. Link's crossbow training exists. Did you know there's a plush baby you can put a Wiimote inside of and play with it for babysitting mama? Do you know how many Wii Shop Trap remixes there are? Do you remember the voice of the Free Coast from Mario Party 8? By creating a more sterile game environment, this translated to the treatment of Mario characters losing the charm and life that they have spent decades cultivating across consoles. I will say that the most recent Mario release, Mario Wonder, is fantastic. Its dedication to silliness and its unabashed commitment to fun is unprecedented in the modern era of Mario. And I hope it's a sign of things to come, since it's so reminiscent of the rich character work that was so apparent in games like Super Mario Sunshine, Super Mario 3D World, Super Mario Bros. 2, the Mario and Luigi series, and yes, of course, Paper Mario. So reviving a game like Thousand Year Door, widely regarded to be the best Paper Mario game, if not one of the best Mario games, if not one of the best RPGs on a Nintendo console, is a bold move, given that no other Paper Mario game has been given this special treatment. Something that separates Paper Mario from some of the series that I just mentioned is an emphasis on story. Miyamoto, although not a director of this second-party series, has been pretty explicit about his feelings regarding story in games. That while it's important that a story lingers in their mind after players finish a game, he loves that when their own experience in the game is what the story is. The beauty of an RPG is that both of the tenets of this philosophy are inextricably linked to the genre itself, and the Thousand Year Door does it expertly. But why now, at the end of the Switch's life cycle, years after the Origami King? And what does it really mean for Nintendo going forward? I don't think only time will tell. I think the success of Paper Mario Thousand Year Door will tell. The extremely simple answer to why this game is that it is the best Paper Mario game. I think what a lot of people forget is that Thousand Year Door is actually a direct sequel to the first Paper Mario game released on the Nintendo 64. I guess that might be a duh moment if you were older at the time, but it was commonly referred to as Paper Mario 2 before and shortly after its release. Which is funny because I guess I just never associated the two since the Star Haven and the Star Spirits aren't brought up at all. The reason I believe we're getting a remaster of this game versus its predecessor, and the reason we got a remaster of Super Mario RPG, isn't for nostalgia bait, but testing the waters a bit with titles where Nintendo didn't take itself and its IP too seriously. Examples of character-rich games in a genre that Mario and Friends aren't typically associated with. The first Paper Mario game, while critically acclaimed, failed to make use of the paper gimmick in the way the Thousand Year Door does. And while there is some really charming dialogue and characters from this pioneer entry, and the self-referential nature of the game was novel in many ways for Mario, the Thousand Year Door not only capitalized on everything that made this game a breakthrough title, but cranked it to 100. You could argue that the next entry in the series, Super Paper Mario for the Wii, continues to crank, but the issue there is removing the iconic stylistic turn-based combat from the game entirely for bland side-scrolling and empty 3D exploration and dulling the art style. But its story is dark and beautiful. The twists and turns are gaggy. The weirdness is welcome, and pushing towards a more digital world is a super interesting take on the evolution of Paper Mario. I do believe that this one deserves a remake as well, with just some reworking and quality of life improvements, but certainly not before the Thousand Year Door. And I don't think a remake of Super Paper Mario would be possible at all without the potential success of the remake of Thousand Year Door, and we'll get into that a little bit later as to why. What about Sticker Star? What about Color Splash? Baby needs his Baba, I think. That's what I think about that. The problems really started arising with Sticker Star when they stripped the story entirely, and they basically tried to do Paper Mario without the story, which is stripping its essence away, and they haven't really recovered since. So it could only be the Thousand Year Door. I think after over a decade's worth of consecutive flops that failed to live up to the greatest RPG Nintendo has ever made, Nintendo has finally realized what people want from the Paper Mario series, the Thousand Year Door. And I don't mean this in a pedantic or oversimplified way. The key to creating memorable media is committing to the bit, whatever that bit may be. The Thousand Year Door is one of, if not the best example of Nintendo's creativity, authenticity, and mold-breaking genre bending that they have to offer. So surprise dropping this remaster during this pivotal moment of transition for Nintendo shoulders a lot of weight. Because the audience has changed, the company has changed, and the world of gaming has changed since the initial success of this title. Nintendo very rarely actually seems to cash in on nostalgia when fans seem to be specifically begging for it. If they did, they would port Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD to the Switch, and address Animal Crossing New Horizons stands on Twitter. On the back end of the Switch's life cycle, Nintendo has gotten extremely tactical about release schedules. That is to say, when a bigger IP is mentioned in a direct or on Twitter, it's usually a sign of more to come. Look at Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl releasing just months before Pokemon Legends Arceus, taking place in the same region. Look at the Skyward Sword HD remaster before the release of Tears of the Kingdom. The reception to Super Mario RPG was immense, and as of the most recent reports in February, has sold over 3 million copies since its release in mid-November, cementing itself for now as one of the top 5 best-selling Mario RPGs ever. This of course is nowhere near the sales of something like Mario Wonder, which is currently sitting comfortably around 11 million sales since launch, but it's a sizable chunk of revenue for the oldest Mario RPG and something that had been essentially reduced to a niche cult hit. I think Thousand Year Door will blow this out of the water, or it should. I can't possibly be the first person to tell you that Nintendo was a company, and famously, companies follow the money. We can post as many heartfelt reactions to the announcement trailer that make me cry for some reason as we want, But if something doesn't perform well, then the raw data says that it's just not worth the investment of time and money. So before I get into what makes the Thousand Year Door so damn good, I think it's important to emphasize that supporting a game tells the developers and publishers, hey, more of this thing, please. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door released in 2004, and a lot of RPGs released before this time were high fantasy games wrapped up in massive worlds that tended to be gritty and mature, apart from Kingdom Hearts, maybe? What sets the Thousand Year Door apart is its ability to lean into the absurdity. This game debuted on the GameCube, a console that did not sell well, and was often ridiculed for its outdated graphics and lack of mature titles. The Thousand Year Door didn't care about any of that. The dialogue is charismatic and funny. The characters are some of the best companions in Nintendo's entire history. The battle system is peak. The worlds are experimental and immersive. And the sound? Not even just the soundtrack, which is flawless, but the little things like the sound effects that are so thematically fitting and cater to the overall mood of the game, which is just pure joy. But the themes of companionship and fun twists keep you on your toes. It's not some juvenile romp in the park. I think difficulty scales really well in this game as well, and the mechanics themselves are inventive and boundary breaking for the time. Another important thing to note is that this is a pretty traditional linear RPG. The trend of pushing games into open world is one that's been around for the past few years now. Take Aonuma claiming that linear games are games of the past when questioned about the future of the Zelda series, and added that nostalgia drives the want for linearity. I think this mindset misses the mark. Some sense of linearity provides the player with a sense of direction, curiosity about stories unfolding, and forces the player to contend with their actions or non-actions in real time. Many open world games by AAA developers are loaded with filler upon release. Even Tears of the Kingdom, a game that I absolutely love, is kinda sparse when it comes to the depths. And the Sky Islands aren't nearly as big as what I think everyone expected them to be. This is not to say that linear games don't have filler or aren't empty from time to time, but the trend of open world games has done a vast disservice to the linear games that came before them. The success of a game like The Thousand Year Door could prove to developers that there is a desire for a structured, tight game where the story, characters, and combat system are all hyper-polished and stylized. The Thousand Year Door has 8 distinct chapters, with nearly each one home to someone you can recruit as your partner, each one expanding what moves Mario can perform both during combat and outside of combat, and each one with new badges to collect. Not to mention the interludes where you can play as Bowser and as Peach. I remember seeing Peach put her hair up in a ponytail after she takes her little bath here and being like, wow. Pause it there. Nintendo's done it. There's weird enemies and stupid dialogue. The boss fights are challenging and memorable. The stage concept established in the first game gets fully fleshed out here, and it makes the turn-based combat active. Another way the Thousand Year Door keeps its turn-based combat engaging is the use of defensive blocks and stylish moves, plus evading pieces of the set or stage that can fall over. It's not even limited to just the stage you stand on. The audience will leave if you were doing a bad job. If you miss your action commands, you've lost 3 people. They're out. They've seen enough. Furthermore, the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door is actually extremely realistic because they have put haters in the game. Yes, that is right. People will throw rocks at you. They will throw their empty cans at you. And you have to get them the hell out of there because they will do it. And then, of course, you can also develop superfans, so these audience members will throw hearts to you or items for you to use in battle. Expanding upon this theater setting and being able to watch your audience react in real time, like cheering every time you do an appeal or hit them with a stylish move, not only fills your star meter, giving you incentive in a mechanical way, but also is just fun. Not to mention the more levels you gain, the bigger your stage becomes and the more your audience can grow. For a game that is based on flatness, it is anything but. We're in a transition period, and Nintendo has to decide its identity if it wants to sustain its legacy. Thousand Year Door represents a time where a lot of experimentation was going on with familiar characters. And I think it's in Nintendo's best interest to be weird and experimental and silly like they were with this game. Rather than having Mario be the story, there is already a story going on in Rogueport and beyond. Mario is just coming into it as a known figure in the culture and interacting with an already lived-in world where everyone has their own story to tell. And I think this is further emphasized by Luigi's presence in the game as well. If you talk to Luigi at different points in the game, he will tell you all about his adventures that are essentially parodying Mario's. It's a Mario game that doesn't feel like it's all about Mario, and it works. But the big roadblock here that I haven't brought up by name yet are the enigmatic Mario mandates. And if you haven't heard of them but have been following Nintendo for the better part of 20 years, then you may have noticed it without knowing what it was called. We do have confirmation from Kensuke Tanabe that these mandates do exist in some fashion, according to an interview with VGC News regarding Paper Mario: The Origami King. When asked about the new villains in The Origami King and how they design characters to stand alongside all-time greats like Bowser and Kamek, Tanabe responded that since Paper Mario Sticker Star, it was no longer possible to modify Mario characters or to create original characters that touch on the Mario universe. This meant that if they weren't using Mario characters for bosses, they needed to create original characters with designs that don't involve the Mario universe at all, like they have done with Ollie and the stationary bosses in The Origami King. Tanabe references Sticker Star as where these mandates went into place, and while he doesn't go into detail, it does confirm that they do exist in some fashion. So this extends to Toads, Yoshis, Goombas, Koopas, Spindrifts, everybody's favorite Spindrifts. No changes there. Perfect creatures. No messing with those. While this may be effective for, say, I don't know, making a box office hit film in collaboration with Universal, it ultimately hurts the limits of what you can do with your characters. And I think that kind of stifling leads to sterility and homogeneity, which is most evident in Origami King when you take a look at some of the sorry world building they do and companions. It's so clear that something massive was holding them back, and part of it is this departure from being an RPG focusing more on puzzle, platforming, action-adventure type stuff, and a lot of it has to do with the stray away from personalizing fun characters. Since the perception from Nintendo was that titles like Super Paper Mario and Super Mario Strikers were straying too far from the image that they envisioned for Mario, and thus an IP team was created. In place of the vacuous tone of New Super Mario Bros. And New Super Mario Bros. For Wii U, recently we got Mario Wonder, which does take lots of creative risks and introduces several new little freaks that I adore, like the Bluebirds and the Mumsies. But Skedaddler, this guy is no good. I wouldn't be surprised if he was the one who created the Mario mandates. Red cap, blue overalls, mustache, that's Mario. There's no denying that's Mario. Yeah, I think that's Mario. But you're telling me, when we do this, he's unrecognizable? You're gonna look at Sir Admiral Bobbery and tell him that he's ruining the brand recognition of Bob-Ombs? Okay. Cruel and unusual, by the way. There's differentiation in species. It's what makes for compelling characters that we take with us and for memorable fights with those that oppose us. I love having Goombella be this protege of Professor Frankly. His character design is excellent, very reminiscent of Egad. The story of Koops and his father in Chapter 1 is funny and it makes you root for him as much as yourself. Madame Flurry is genuinely good fat representation. I remember loving her as a kid and thinking she was such a bad bitch. Vivian must be protected at all costs, and I love that the Shadow Sirens were original characters because they tell such a rich story about the complexities of sisterhood. Don Pianta, who I envision as Tony Soprano. It's not even just the companions in the Thousand Year Door. Every single NPC you interact with feels whole. The Rogueport newsletters you get constantly throughout the story that you can read about that involve the characters that you've met along your journey. The Trouble Center where you can help NPCs with little troubles. The different bits of dialogue everyone has the more you progress in your story. No character involved in this game feels default. Rogueport and the rest of the world feels like it's home to real creatures and characters and brimming with life. And anytime you decide to approach anybody, they will offer you a little peek into their world and how they're interacting with their surroundings. Rogueport as a hub world is perfect. Not only do you have several sides of the town to explore, all with their own seedy characters and little gems, like the traveling merchant, Zesty, who can't get over this contact thing, Ishmael and his crew running the east side. You also have the seedy underbelly of the town where you access all of the pipes to the different worlds. Immediately you will see items that you cannot interact with, bits of the setting that are just out of reach for the time being. And this extends until the final chapter, unlocking previously inaccessible areas that make this world even more expansive. I can see this bit of wall scraping off, and I don't know what to do with it, but once I know that Madame Flurry can blow it away, well, there we go. I see this giant box, and I can't hit with my hammer. I wonder if my hammer is going to be upgraded. I see these cracks in the wall everywhere, but how can I get to them? Well, lo and behold, we unlock a companion who can do that. The Thousand Year Door lets all of its cards on the table from the get. It's letting you see, but not touch. This makes the moments we do get to touch extremely satisfying. And because of your innate familiarity with Rogueport, every single time you unlock a new ability, a new companion, or new mechanics, you think of all the ways you can use them with things you've already seen. All that has been lost in the past 3 entries in the Paper Mario series, and clearly has affected Mario games as a whole for the better part of 15 years for what? Protection of IP? With the success of its remaster, it is possible that Nintendo will see the value in dismantling these mandates, or at least loosening the reins to allow for creativity and the limitless potential that is within all of these dearly beloved characters. And with any luck, it will not be the last. Congratulations, you've made it to the end of this video, which means you get to play Find the Funnel Cake. Leave a comment down below when you find it, but don't tell anybody where it is. For every like, I will be hitting myself in the head with a GameCube controller for losing my childhood copy of The Thousand Year Door, leading me to purchase one now at the age of 25 for $80. Take care of yourself, come again real soon, and you know, I'm just really hoping that I've made everything right in the eyes of gamers. I'm gonna assume that my penance went through because I don't appear to be smited.